So let's recap where we are. Back in 1996, we all sat down to watch the lone TV appearance of the Eighth Doctor. Now, yes, he did come back in The Night of the Doctor, but that was 17 years later, and I'm sure no one held their breath that long. And this was after a prolonged absence from the box. After what being off air for 7 years? That's tidy showing. Therefore, the Doctor Who movie was essentially a pilot film that didn't lead into a series. The only direct follow-up to the time being the serialized adventures in the Radio Times. Okay, but being Doctor Who, nothing as straightforward as that. And yes, the Eighth Doctor did have further adventures with Big Finish, like as clearly exampled by having a toy over the Big Finish line. There is, and also a continuing comic strip in the official magazine. Yeah, have some Roger language art, just to, because obviously the world can't have too much Roger language. There we go. But sadly, that movie didn't lead into a new series. We're all denied the Eighth Doctor TV series and an annual, which is why we've got this. Now, you all want to see what's inside. Now, I'm going to cover the contents as sparsely as possible while still giving you a clear idea of what lies within, keeping the spoilers to a minimum. My approach will be to mention a few things and where possible contextualise it a little, like a DVD extra as it were, but for a book. Now, I'm going to start with a terrific 2, and for that, Exhibit A, my lord, is this, which almost the same size as the actual annual. This may look outwardly like the Radio Times, the 25th to the 31st of May, 1996, price 72B, but it's actually one of these fan-made booklets, which inside has all the Radio Times comic strips, reprinted unofficially, as it were. Actually, this came in very handy for my bit. See, there's a listing there of it all on the side. A few signatures. Always, if you get a chance to meet people, meet them. And this has been an absolute godsend to me, but and a nice thing in its own right. But this is essentially what's going to outline what you're going to get within the annual. Because at this point in time, the only thing that existed outside of the TV pilot is the Radio Times scripts. So anyway, I'm going to refer to these pairing as the Terrific 2. That's Gary Russell and Lee Sullivan. And they have both provided some content for this annual. Okay? That's why I'm saying it's about being authentic. So, more that later on. So, what have we got within? Right. Now, bear with me a second. This is going to be a bit messy. They have got 3 dollops of their content within. I'm going to sort of show you that first. Okay. We have got, let's see now. We have an introduction by Guy Russell. So let's quickly flip through, which is this bit here. And I'll show you both sides of that. There we go. And we've also got an afterword by Lee Sullivan. Hey, found that in one go. There we go. In the same sort of visual styling. Like so. And between those 2 points, there are a few little bits and pieces. We have some character sketches, which I can tell you is on page 55 to 57. Oh, gone too far. There we go. I won't show you them all, but they're there. And we've also got a bit on scripts. And I had it made into a strip, as it were, and that's page 129. Sorry, there's also unnecessary glimpses there. From script to strip, perceptions, 4.10. There we go, more like it. So you can see they're provided some content. Oops, the camera there. Provided some content of how the actual Radio Times scripts were actually done. And their contribution, and all that, those strips, become essentially the backbone for what you get within the rest of the book. Now, this wasn't the first time the Terrific 2 have produced Who content together. They're both quite an extensive Who CVs for that. They previously iterated the Sixth Doctor. Well, I've got it somewhere here. Here we go. Ta-da! There is a model of him in his sort of Picasso blue period. And currently, cue the prop. Where have we got now? Oh, yes, here it is. Doctor Who magazine, where Lee is sort of repeating history with a strip version of the 14th Doctor for the official magazine. So, can I find that quickly? There we go. Like so. You're sort of bridging the gap between first appearance and series. I have to say, though, the 14th Doctor, or as I like to think of him, number 10 in golfing trousers. That's 10 plus 4, in case you were wondering. Moving on. And stories. Yes, what's an annual like without stories? Well, a lot thinner, that'll be the case. Now, this is jam-packed with stories, and I feel a bit guilty at this point because I've got a feature in there which is kind of like a story as well, which I'll do a bit of an Easter egg about thing later on. But the point being is I don't feel comfortable picking out people. But as the case may be, I do have to show you something. So, using the power of randomness and a little bit of pre-planning, I'm going to put out some stories almost at random, like Infestation, which is just the first one after the foreword. Oh, by the way, and apologies if I do this more than once, because it's print on demand, there is some blank pages. That's normal, okay? But it does mean that you've got some nice space there for autographs, some sketches and the like. The true end papers are actually here, done by S'mores. There we go. And you can see it's after Walter Howarth. And she's referencing the very first Who annual, I think, remember rightly. And there's a bit of get in focus, and there's a bit of an Easter egg down here regarding the date. Okay, that's a bit of a spoiler saying that's there, but hey, too late now. I've shown you. You shouldn't have watched the video if you want to go in completely blind. Right, there we go. Infestation. It's a rather nice artwork. It must have been revealed already, I think. But look at that. Great. And I'm going to point out the red text there. Doctor, these aren't like the Cybermen we met on the Dreadnought. And as I mentioned before, how this has got its DNA in here. Well, if we go to the very first Radio Time story, it's called Dreadnought. Just pointing it out. You know, there is method in the madness, or just madness. You decide. Right. So what else we got in here? Let's see now. Oh, a bit there by Paul McCaffrey. My friend Paul. I keep pointing them out because, you know, I'm sort of semi-obliged to now. I got him involved in this mess. So there we go, some more pages. Right, where else do we go to? Well, oh yes. This is one for me. This is one where we can be interactive with your thoughts in the comments. And it's not there so you can sort of help with the analytics for the YouTube channel. No. This is where I need some answers. I desperately need some answers. Now, where is it? It's on page 165. I've gone to the wrong way. Right, a story here. A Night at the Opera. And this has been doing my head in. Really, seriously has. It's a very nice illustration, but I've seen it before. In the layout and the scope and the idea behind it. And I'd love to know where this is from. I mean, I could email the team, but okay, where's the fun in that? I spent a long time Googling images, thinking, where have I seen this before? With the main character looking directly at the viewer. Driving me nuts. And going with the title, A Night at the Opera. Okay, yes, it is the name of a Queen album, hence there, Freddie Mercury there, and it's also the name of a Marx Brothers film, hence you got Groucho over there, the vaudeville leader of the Marx Brothers, and the inspiration for a lot of novelty disguises. So yes, they tie into the title, but to me it's the layout. This is riffing on something, it's driving me nuts. And the character selection is interesting as well, because let's see what we got here. You have got Alfred Burke, okay, whose appearances include Flypaper, an infamous edition of Tales of the Unexpected, and the leading TV series Public Eye. And Public Eye's cast and crew contains an awful lot of Who names, such as that Carol Ann Ford or Robert Holmes, Robank Stewart, Dave Whittaker, Bob Baker, and David Martin. Okay, a few name drops there. So he's tied in quite heavily, sort of on the side there. And you've got Louise Brooks there, which is a silent movie actress. So these names, Ali Sloper, which is like an 1890s comic character, and the name of a British Comic Award. That's for comic strips. So anyway, if you know what's going on down here, or what this is actually referring to, put it in the comments and put me out of my misery, because I have Googled this far too many times. But anyway, that's the public information cry out to put in place. I'm sure there's a name for that sort of thing. So anyway, moving on. This thing's full of stories. I have just picked on a few things at random, and apologies if I didn't show yours, but I'm trying to keep it spoiler free. Features. Yes, we're on to features now, and a little bit of a preamble required here. The UK gaming scene, well, home gaming scene, was probably past its boom period by the 90s, well, late 90s at least. Doesn't mean it's gone away, but it wasn't, the sort of thing that it was, okay, that we all sort of grew up with. However, it did make its mark on popular culture. I mean, you just have to look at the Bandersnatch episode of Black Mirror. Right. As exemplar, let's put it that way up, kiddies. That way up. Yes, that is actually a DVD of it. Let's put up for consideration to send people DVDs. So, yay! Glad I got that. Which will cause them to promote things by putting those Tucker software shops up and things, sort of bogus alternative universe. It was a real good treat to the eyes when you went to looked inside the windows. We do have a video of the one from Birmingham on the channel, by the way. I'll try and put a link on screen or in the description for that. Anyway, there have been a few Doctor Who games with Destiny of the Doctors actually being released for Windows in 1997, which is, well, that is obviously for the forthcoming year, as it were, but 1997 is the actual sale off date for the annual, so it fits within that. Now, in here, though, we have a feature. We have an alternative universe feature. Let's call this up. There we go. Very distinctive with Mastertronic sort of branding. Yes, Mastertronic in their 199 range for the plus 416 stroke Commodore 164. Yeah, they don't exist either. Yeah, the whole thing is a pastiche. So don't go onto eBay hoping to find it. I have actually checked just in case there was any game by Mastertronic that sort of fits into this template with this very handy, the Commodore 64 Collector's Guide to Mastertronic. And I can confirm that the only thing under D that's close to this is Double Dragon 1 and 2. But I did discover there was a Yes Prime Minister game, which I had never heard of. They're the things you find, eh? Anyway, put that to one side. Now let's see what happens now. Now, Mastertronic ended up being merged with Virgin Interactive, VIE from rightly, were then swallowed up by Sega. So, some apologies now if you've got the word Sega in your head when you turn on your Mega Drive. I was going to show an actual game, and I have got some more somewhere, but here we go. An actual cassette tape I bought fairly recently for a whole £2.50 for an Action Force video I've yet to do. So apologies to Action Force fans, but Action Force will crop up later in the video, weirdly enough. Let's put that away. Now, so Mastertronic were merged with, say, with Virgin and went to Sega. It was a later 199 was a 299 range, and the Mastertronic added dimension, which is what that is. Let's see now. But there was a Doctor Who game around this time, kind of, and for that you need a slightly different book. So just going to close this out of the way again. This That hinge is seeing a lot of use today, and for that we need another book called The ZX Nightmares, which I've got to hand here. Ta-da! And you may be wondering why? Well, thanks to this is kind of another dippable book. It's all about games that are hard to play or games that are basically bad. You get the idea. We do have a reference to, and he says, looking for it. Why am I forced to go to the index? Please don't say I'm forced to go to the index. If not, you're getting the bonus video on this book. Doctor What? How about that? From CRL in 1986. Yeah, okay. I lied. It was 10 years earlier. But it's the closest I can get. I thought you'd like to see that. Show you that these games do exist. Doctor What? There's also a Doctor Why. No, I'm not suggesting an annual based on this. Okay. Right, so from that, we'll look at a slightly different feature. More in a moment. Also in the feature section, the radio time strip. Example here. Oh, this book makes its appearance again. It is covered in a detailed feature, which is on page 82. I'll try and show you that now. Oh, got it home in one. Almost. Which is here. And the other thing out of the side is that Gary Russell brings up a Captain Pugwash down here, perfect Pugwash. Now, if you're wondering about this, this was a strip that started in Eagle comic before it appeared on the BBC. Now, its entry in the 80s of the British comic strips. Here we are again. And for completeness, I'll even show you the Radio Times entry for the 8th Doctor. There we go. Artist Lee Sullivan, writer Guy Russell, Radio Times, 1996 to 1997. 5 storylines featuring the 8th Doctor, played by Paul McGann, in the TV movie were showcased in the Radio Times before transferring to the more usual habitat of the Doctor Who monthly magazine. So anyway, moving on from that, let's see now. We do have Captain Pugwash. I'll read you his entry in here. It's in here somewhere. It's A to Z. Ooh, Carol Day. Beautiful art. Here we go. Pugwash Ahoy. Artist and writer John Ryan, Radio Times, 1957 to 1965. Time strip used to promote the 5-minute television episodes on the BBC, featuring the distinctive cardboard cutout puppets. Ryan was also the man behind Harris Tweed and Lettuce Leaf for Eagle and Girl Comics, respectively, which actually is a nice way for you to show off this. Which I've got on you. I'm going Captain Pugwash, but I do have some Lettuce Leaf. Oh, it's charming. It's all been put on off cuts of artboard. It's great, and an awful lot of white out. Not saying he's bad or anything, but it's just how he tidies all up. Lovely stuff. Anyway, moving on. So there we go. A nice reference here showing the first Doctor appears with Captain Pugwash. I thought that's quite a nice, charming thing. I'm just trying to contextualise the references mentioned. Right, on to the next bit. Continue with the features. It's now time for me to cover my contribution to the annual. Now, this came at the request to provide text to accompany a series of photographs of the 8th TARDIS console. The final images in the annual are actually different to the ones I initially saw. So actually the text does accompany the pictures, complement the pictures rather well, because one talks about a picture and then the other one shows you a different picture. It kind of makes sense. It balances out quite nicely. I used the Radio Times strips extensively looking for all the references, especially the minor ones. Now, I took great pains to only include the Radio Times and the movie, such that there was only 3 external editions. Am I right? Only 3. So I think it's sort of a director's commentary as I point out what they are. Now, my feature in the annual, I'm being careful here to show you that page because it's the end of the story, is My Ship, My Home. Now, initially I made an outline story submission that didn't get through, but I was then asked if I could instead provide text to accompany images of the 8th Doctor's TARDIS console. These are much. So these are different images to the ones that I was initially shown, but they've been processed a lot more now in colour and just made them look good. And I've only used material from the movie and the Radio Times strips. Now, access to those, courtesy of that fine unofficial reprint book I showed you, and I scoured it for every conceivable reference, however obscure, and there are some obscure ones in there. I was also asked to make this feature so the text had to be about the console and not just a story, and there'd be a piece to introduce the character to what was then would be, well, a fresh audience, because since it was kind of a pilot movie. The audience will also be an international one. A few challenges in there. Initially, I framed it in the form of an interview with the Doctor in his disguise as his hospital postponer. But this was then reworked twice, turning it instead into a third-person piece of someone entering the TARDIS, and then finally into a first-person viewpoint. So in frame, that's in frame. As for the non-Who references, well, this gets interesting. Simon Postgate, the son of the small film's Oliver Postgate, that's another reference to BBC TV children's TV there, mentioned something in one of his talks. And I'll put a link to his Everbright page in the description below. Well, Simon Postgate recanted the story of his father, Oliver. I told him. Now, Oliver Postgate's own father, and Simon's grandfather, was a writer and social historian by the name of Raymond Postgate. He also founded a good food guide. He's actually a novelist, and I've got it here somewhere. Here we go. There we go. Verge of the 12, Raymond Postgate. There we go. The British Library Crime Classics. And if you're interested, there's the ISBN number on the back. Okay. Anyway, he did a description of H.G. Wells, or as Bertie, appears in the book, or in my text, was taken from Simon's recanting of his father's meeting with H.G. Wells when he was a boy. I mean, that's when his grandfather was a boy, not H.G. Wells. Now, H.G. Wells wrote the Time Machine, which introduced the term time machine into popular culture, and obviously you see it in the actual movie. So it was just too good not to use. So references to Bertie comes from that story, and the character of H.G. Wells comes from that story. Well, memory of his grandfather telling his father who told him. Now, other elements include a passing reference to the moving toy shop, it's right at the end. Now, this is in a series of books featuring Amateur Detective by Edmund Crispin. Actually, I do have a copy of the moving toy shop, but I can't find it when you want it. So here's the first book in the series, The Case of the Gilded Fly. And so the moving toy shop was actually book 3, and it's getting quite dear now, so I'm kind of worried where I put my copy, to be honest. So I've got 2 of them, even though they're the first cheap edition. Anyway, I'm a detective by Edmund Crispin. He's on here, Edmund Crispin. There we go. Actually, the author's real name is Robert Bruce Montgomery, who's actually a composer and wrote film soundtracks. Amongst those, I'd mentioned there are a few Carry On films and 4 movies in the Doctor series, so it did seem kind of appropriate. Anyway, this amateur sleuth was an Oxford Don called Gervase Fenn, a character that I recall someone in the TV Who creative world had previously described as very Doctor-like, and that's very true. There are moments where, especially with later stories, he breaks the fourth wall and talks directly to the actual reader. It's odd. It doesn't fit out of place. It's lots of jokes are in that, not in as big hoo-ha-ha type, but just sort of referencing. That's where I can put it. Anyway, somebody in the TV Who creative world had mentioned the correlation between the two, and I can't remember who that was. And now that leads me to the final external reference, which is in the I'll show you everything right in the end, where the final farewell that the 8th makes, and this was a deliberate misquote, as I didn't want it to be too direct, on the nose. And to make it more fun, I made it a misquote of a line from a film where another Doctor-like character, in this case Sherlock Holmes, uses the correct quote at the end of the movie. I hope that makes sense. Yeah. It does to me, but hey, there you go. Now, there are many other features and games in the annual, and I'll probably show you another one in a mo. I will finish looking at one other feature in here, but I feel guilty not talking about the book in general and all the stuff that's in here, because there's just so much content. You think, oh, it's so many pages, but yes, but there's so much variety. There's so many things. We talked about the foreword and afterwards and the types of stories, and I'm trying not to spoil things by flipping through, but there's so much material in here from different authors, different artists, different things. It's very hard to not go woo, and you get odd things like that, which is a series of transmissions done like, you can't help but think of more Colin Awesome with it, and they appear at different points throughout the book, telling its own little tale. But joke page, come on, who doesn't like a joke page? And I apologise now for my contribution. And you've got a little comic strip at the bottom there by Mark Worzel and Paul Cook, whose Zygon Diaries deserve their own video, which I must get around to doing one day. But yeah, all hail Mark. And we continued. There is so much, and there's some really odd and interesting stories. Okay, I guess it's a small special there. It's a fun read. Oh dear, there is so much, and there's things I'm skimming past people, but dedicated follower fusion, you can't help but smile at the title and just look at the art. Just, nice bit of graphic art in there, as well as a nice piece of artwork. It's lovely stuff everywhere, and I'm just feeling bad not pointing to everything because, well, that would spoil stuff. A bit Scooby-Doo-ish. Okay, a bit Scooby-Doo-ish. The Perils of Auntie Beebe. Okay, and yes, the kids' gallery. Towards the end. And answers. You don't see the answers. But I was going to sort of look at page, I think it's 80 something. Yeah, 89. And a bit of a strange segue, because basically all my contextualizing is a bit of a segue at the end of the day. Spot the difference. Okay, I've shown you both sides. Oh well. There's a full puzzle. Anyway, this is a piece of artwork by Stephen Baskerville, a British comic artist. And he joked when I met him, he signed one side. He said, well, now he's created an extra difference. So there's a free one, which you won't have in your copy, unless you meet him, get him to sign it. Unless he signs both sides. There won't be a difference, would it? Anyway, lovely man. And I was saying before, we're getting sketches done and things. I can recommend the First Day covers, the Royal Mail. Excellent paper. And as I said, he's done Transformers and Action Force, which lays back into that Spectrum game I showed you earlier. And he worked on Death's Head 2. I think it's Head 2, not the first one. And I think I mentioned that because I'll segue into it, so I've got the stuff to hand. Recently they reprinted it, well, the first lot, collecting Dragon's Claws 5, Death's Head 1988, 1 to 7 and 9 to 10, and then carries on with other issues. And the reason why I haven't gone for 8, which is this one here, which is the expensive one, oh look, it's got a TARDIS on it. So in the times when Marvel had the license to Doctor Who and everything else, so you get a couple of Doctors make an appearance earlier on. There it is. I just saw it then, down there, and then towards the end, it's a very familiar face. Yes, it's Dr. McCoy. Or is that a different franchise altogether? Just to confuse things even further. But the choice of people in here does echo through. British comic talent, old, new, and hopefully for the future, have all contributed to this. Now, the complicated bit, because I'm going to talk to you now about the differences and how to get the book. So some of you who've been hanging on this long are hoping that this bit would answer their questions. and I'll do my best. As for the differences, it does get a little complicated, so please bear with me on this. Now, this book, or annual, or the McGannual, as been referred to in some quarters, which is a term I quite find kind of a bit of fun, is only available for a limited window of time from Lulu. Okay, Lulu. Now, my original plan was to put the link in the description and on screen. However, it's become apparent that the link has changed due to, well, reasons, and so it'll be in the description only. Now, I'll try and keep it up to date, but if it does change or become invalid, then please put it in the comments, draw people's attention to it. All right? There's a reason why the comments exist. Now, Lulu is a print-on-demand service, and when ordered from them, any issues you have will be between yourself and Lulu. Terraqueous Distributors have no control, as these are all bespoke books being made to order. Okay? That's why they're so expensive. Now, I will also put all known discount codes into the description. Obviously, try the larger numbers first, because they intimate the time to the discount. Any problems, please contact Lulu. To be honest, they have sorted out problems for me in the past, and they do answer emails. Okay, I found them to be a really straight-up company. Right. Now, there are variants. Variants, you may ask? Well, there are. And access to the variant is a little more complicated. Sorry. And requires a charity donation and the forwarding of the charity email receipt to Terraqueous Distributors, who will then forward the ordering links to yourself. Now, a link to the Facebook group will be in the description, so please check there for the latest instructions. Okay, obviously it's a charity donation and the window of time. It's imperative that you follow the latest instructions, so I won't be showing it on screen. Now, the standard edition of the annual runs to over 200 pages. An exact page count is tricky, as the end papers are included in the pagination. All are presented in colour and are balanced out to form a nice mix as you go through the book. Now, I say standard edition, there's in fact 3 editions. The standard edition and 2 others that act as the variants, and access to which is via a secret link that is emailed to you upon a charitable donation, as mentioned earlier. And this link URL will change periodically. Now the 3 versions. Okay. Now the obvious thing or stand out is the cover. But there are some other differences within. Okay. Not in content. The same features and stories are common to them all. Instead, the art behind the index and on the thank you for your support page does change between the editions. So there is some representation of the 3 editions within each book, but they do all contain an exclusive image that only appears in that edition. Okay, hope that makes sense. Now, here we have the original, and I said there's 2 variants. This is the original cover, and the art on the front and back is by Mark Worzel. Now, this is the first variant, and there's not any preference, but I'm going to go this one first, by Kristen Marola. Apologies now to anybody's name if I've actually messed it up. I'm terrible with names, but here we go. Now, this is, as you can see from side by side, there's a lot of similarity in layout, but it's different art as you compare the images all around. I'll show you the back as well. Like so. Quite distinctively. Sorry about the reflection there. Trying to get it off the screen. And you see they are different. That there is the first variant. The other variant is a little more obvious. They look completely different. So the formatting is different on the front. Again, all different artwork. Now, this one is by Caroline Edwards. Now, I'm going to turn them both over so you see front and back of these 2. And finally, this stuff with framing, I'm going to take away the standard edition. This is the standard edition, and put the first variant back into frame so you can see the 2 variants side by side. Okay, front and back. So these are the 3 versions of the book. So let's put it down a second and put the standard one back in top there. Right. So this one, the original cover is by Mark Morgan. Kristen Merola did that one on that side, and Karen Edwards has done that one on that side. And that's the easy bit. It's a bit more convoluted from this point on. Right, starting with the index, both the Mark Wogan and Kristen Merola editions both use Carolyn Edwards art for the index backdrop on the left hand side. Okay, so this is the standard one. If we look at the index, there it is. Okay, so it appears there, left hand side only. Close the book, take this edition, let's go to the index, and again, there it is. Yay, so that cover appears in both of those two. The right hand side is the same in both, but doesn't appear at all in that version. At least I can't find it. So let's look at the index in this one. There we go. Ta-da! It looks like that. Now, this is where it gets a little complicated still. The background is a composite of Mark Wogan's for the upper part, which is that one, and Kristen Merola's for the lower part. Right? And the right hand side is the back cover of Kristen Merola's edition, which is that there. Follow me so far. So bits of these appear for the index pages for that. Could be so for, yeah, this is, it's kind of complicated. I've tried to make notes on this, but I'm feeling this is going to play back is going to be very strange. Now this segues nicely into the back covers. The regular back cover by Mark Wogan appears just before the afterword on page 174 in all editions. I want to show that because it's getting complicated. The back cover by Karen Edwards is used after the afterword in the Mark Wogan and Kristen Merola editions as the charity thank you page on page 177. That means the charity thank you page in Karen Edwards edition by Fayaz Rahman is unique to that edition. So let's go to page 177. And that image is only in that copy. 177 in this one, and the other one is the Karen Edwards image in that cover. We're happy so far. That means that every edition has something unique about it, big or small. It's all different. And also I've noticed that if you go to My Ship, My Home, my bit on page 67, you have the elements of the Mark Wogan cover are reused on that page. So if I go to this one, page 67, there are actually, well, that bit is anyway, put it that way. Yes. So the bits of it appear all over the place. But essentially, you just choose the cover you feel is the best. That is a simple way of doing it, because they've all got little bits that are unique to each other, to themselves. If that is all bits, I hope they are, but there might be more. Please, again, put them in the comments below. And you think, remember, it's only weird people like me who get all three. All right. I hope that makes sense. That was a pain to figure out. So yes, go with the covers. Whichever one you like the best, go with that. All right. Now on to the conclusion. See you in a minute. And back in the room. Right, okay. So why do I say this is Terraqueous Publications' best release to date? Well, apart from having a feature by me in it, I say that for full transparency, well, it's down to authenticity. For some reason, I'm reminded oddly of the Rent-A-Ghost annual. Here's one here. Now, this annual has content provided by the cast and crew. They're even named in the credits of the book. They are, down here. And you get some odd things in here as a consequence. For instance, we've got some contributions by Mr. Claypole himself. That's Michael Staniforth. Apologies if I got the name wrong. But also by the director, Jeremy Swan, which explains things like this on page 30. Here we go. Where you have the camera positioning for the end credits. Well, there we go. Rent-A-Ghost, Series F, Episode 5, Scene 30, Interior, the Mika's living room, day. It's an odd thing to have in a children's book, but thanks to a recent Kaleidoscope event where director of Rent-A-Ghost, Jeremy Swan, was in attendance. He was a great guest, by the way. He went through the sequence of events of filming, and after a week's rehearsal, they'd film in one 12-hour block, and they were there to attend at quite late at night. And it was all the credits were shot live, so it all resonates with the book. It made sense. It makes this feel right. It put context to what I was reading. Now, the Unofficial Doctor Who annual is cover dated 1997. So this book would have ideally appeared on the sofas of Christmas morning of 1996. Remember, they're always dated for the year in advance. That was a Monday, by the way. So the date is making it valid for the forthcoming year 1997. And oddly enough, 1997 saw the release of GoldenEye 007 on the N64. And that gives me an excuse to cover this Polaroid of myself at the ECTS, which at least gives me a reminder of the year. If you turn into the trade show, you could dress up as Bond. A Polaroid taken, right? A Polaroid. It's madness. Absolute madness. But it kind of makes you think of the year without these little things to sort of tie it down in your head of what you were doing and what was going on then. So back to the annual. With only contemporary additional stories of the Eighth Doctor being the Radio Times tales, and thanks to the inclusion of contributions from the Terrific Two, Gary Russell and Lee Sullivan, this book, like the Rent-A-Ghost annual, feels very authentic and as close as you can get without recourse to an actual time machine. So I contest that this annual should instead be considered not the unofficial annual, but the actual annual. Alas, it's had to take the long way round to get here, taking over a quarter of a century to do so. And just like the Christmases of old, that's an awful lot of dates to digest. Well, thanks for watching and sticking to the very end. I hope this has been entertaining, educational, and may have caused you to sort of, get one of these or do the charitable donation if you can make your way through the minefield that is. It isn't that bad, actually. It just takes a bit of effort. Well, hey, thanks for watching, and see you next time. Bye for now.